All right, guys, we only got 2 hours. Y'all ready to?
10:05. Pledge allegiance. Let's find it. There's a corner.
There's one right here.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Let's start with you, Doc Fossum.
Greg Foster here.
Wendy DiCatano here.
Robert Howell here.
Mary Rose Spilletta, present.
Rose Larkin, present.
Jennifer Rusk, present.
Steve Johnson, here.
Bill Beach here.
Chad Schutz on staff.
Okay. And Jacob, what up?
You got a microphone over there today?
I've got a very great voice that projects wonderfully.
All right, so June 14th, right, okay. Let's get on with the, approve the agenda. Let's have a look at this agenda, public comment. So, the first thing I see is Building Back Better made its way onto the agenda again. Where's staff at? We got rid of Build Back Better as a phrase. It was discussed. Too political, too overused. We like Rebuild Right.
Okay.
Limit ourselves.
To do vegetation.
Rebuild Right. Too political.
So again, it's
I don't either.
Steve. What is it?
Rebuild Right.
Not left.
Did he email it?
Correctly. It doesn't rhyme with our left and
Do you have any copies of
correctly. Rebuild correctly.
Write the word right in green.
Copies of the agenda.
Oh,
I'm going to
okay.
bring it up on my phone.
I didn't get the email.
It's not a very long agenda. You can just look over the shoulder too.
Can I take a picture of that real quick, Steve? Please?
Of what?
The agenda.
Oh, of course.
You should have it in your email too, Rob.
It's on that email that had the
Oh, the one that you
Shoreline
just.
spotlights.
Oh, it's on the same one? Oh, okay, okay.
Exactly, yeah, it's kind of.
I just saw that one attachment. Thank
Right.
you, Chad.
And where's the approval of the last minutes? Because I don't have any.
We haven't, we're approving the agenda first. So, yeah, so based on our last meeting, we had come up with a list of items, and these are the first three we're going to start hacking at. Wayside Park, beach accesses, and vegetation on town properties. All right, so, any, do we need a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
All right. Any opposition? Okay, unanimous. Approve the previous meeting minutes. Did you all get a chance to review those?
There is a slight error
Okay.
because it says the approval of the previous meeting minutes, and it said August 10th. It was really April 12th. We did the April 12th and the September 14th.
Those were the two that we did? We did one that was pre-hurricane and one that was post-hurricane, right?
Yes. Right.
Did you catch that, Chad?
Bear with me. I'm opening up right now.
Oh, I see August and September.
Yes, we did not do August. We did April, our previous meeting, which was our first meeting this year of 2023, and then
It should read September 14th, 2022 and April.
whatever it says.
2023.
10, whatever. Yeah, you can read my writing, yes.
What they did is they just did the two previous months for the storm, August and September. Oh, April 12th. Okay, anything else?
Yep, so that's just good.
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as edited.
So moved.
I'll second
Okay.
it.
No opposition. Passes unanimously. So that was motion by Johnson, seconded by
Rose.
Rose. Okay, good. Moving right along here. Public comment? Anybody outside wants to come in? Those kids or anything? Nope. We'll keep moving along here. Current items. So first one up is Rebuild Right, Bayside Park. So as we discussed, Bayside Park is back on the agenda, or on the agenda for the town council as well as us today. And so the feedback, I think we had just discussed briefly at the previous meeting as we were adding it to the, our agenda for our ongoing meetings, was that, that there was some contentious points prior to the approval last time, and that's something maybe we can look at again. One being the coconut palms, I think was
Right.
specifically brought up,
And the artificial grass.
and the artificial grass as well.
And the uplighting.
The uplighting.
And I understand that everything under the ground, the lighting, all the electrical stuff was trashed. So that can all be rethought.
I had
Is the design pretty much the same as
So
what it was?
I was
Heard
just, if
what
I
you
may,
heard, right?
yeah, so I
Yeah.
stopped, I just happened to be driving by when the new town manager and FEMA were walking through the park, and I decided to get out and have a conversation with them. And he said that the park has to be built back exactly the way it was according to FEMA. And I said, well, you know, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm sure there's a way we can, you know.
Well, I'll tell you that FEMA is about repairing what was damaged. Not, like, you can't, like with town hall, you get so much money to rebuild what you have. If you want to build back any more, then you've got to come up with additional funds, and
Okay.
it complicates FEMA. One of the reasons why town hall is still standing is, you know, trying to do things a little differently.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if the new town manager really, you know, knows our lighting ordinance, but he, when I brought up that, you know, I believe in the ordinance that we shouldn't have uplighting, and he said, well, uplighting's fine as long as we, you know, make sure that the color is right. And that's the thing, is those uplights were installed to change colors for, I guess, in planning aesthetically, but I believe that we need to follow our own town ordinance and make sure that that uplighting is not installed.
Okay. And I think it's also, if you guys do make a resolution, make sure you let them know that uplighting is just generally up. Because I was fighting the losing side of that debate, and the guy was complaining, well, you know, they're 5 degrees, so they're not really up.
Well, the caveat was that they said it was architectural, or do we know, has there been a permit for the, are there plans, Chad, do you know where that's at? Has that been?
I can ask Public Works.
But you haven't signed off on anything, the environmental aspect of the job?
I think it was signed off on prior to the storm.
You're saying for the original,
Yes,
would
sir.
they normally have to pull out another a permit to re-permit the rebuild?
I would assume so, but I can ask.
But you haven't seen anything?
No, sir.
Okay, good. Because that was a caveat when, you know, that was done during that M&P meeting. It got pushed through, and it was
Yeah, very
presented
quickly.
as, yeah, you can go back and look at that meeting. So the uplighting, yeah, that's uplighting. I mean, if you look at the intent of our dark skies municipal lighting ordinance, it's absolutely against it, and you can't, again, that's our position.
You say FEMA FEMA says you have to build it back exactly the way it was. Do they give you a check, or do they oversee you building it? Because could we use funds that would have otherwise gone to fake grass or palms to then go to new lighting instead of those?
Well, I'll tell you what they do is they go back and they audit it some years later, and they
Right.
call it clawback. So if you haven't done things in the right way, you know, all your I's dotted, your T's crossed, then they'll ask for that money back.
Okay, well then that's interesting, and I think we should go to council and request that they make these changes to Bayside Park,
And I would just couch it to say, you know, if possible.
if possible.
Yeah.
Can we suggest something instead of the uplighting? Like, the point of the uplighting is just to be attractive to tourists, right?
It's
The
just
colors.
a waste of that, yeah, a waste
So,
of light.
in place of that, since this is no good, but we have to have some kind of a light, is
We
there?
think we do have
an
amber
alternative?
lighting already.
Well,
those
what
trees
they
are
had there
back,
though is they had
sure.
dual lighting. They had installed dual lights in Bayside Park.
So
Some-
is our position that that's sufficient then, that we don't need this other, or what do we want something in place of, or?
Well, they have a design firm. come up with something besides just, you know, a light bomb going off.
Okay, so anything that will be wildlife
That meets our,
compliant will
what we feel like
suffice.
meets our municipal lighting ordinance,
Okay,
right?
Right.
I mean, uplighting is,
yeah.
it's exactly that, it's waste of energy, it's,
So that's our position. This is unacceptable because it does not meet the requirements of our ordinance.
Right.
What we
And it-
want is something that will do that.
correct.
Good.
And I believe they also, I've read some articles that uplights disorient birds.
Mhm. Yeah,
And that is, I believe, an area of wildlife concern. So,
it is.
yes, it is.
How about if we asked for shields over the uplighting?
But then what's the point?
If they have to rebuild it as it was, put a shield on it.
No, also, I mean, it's white light too, regardless if it's
Yeah.
RGB, you know, it's white light,
Yeah.
it's LED white light, so,
And I don't believe that they, because I know the other plan was that the uplight had different colors,
right,
but you just, a red is not wildlife,
no, of course not,
so.
right.
But you know, what the doc said might be an idea too, is just say, if we do have to put it back, according to FEMA, exactly like it was, get the survey, then afterwards we can put shields on top of them that essentially make them like little landscape downlights, not like on top.
Yeah, not totally, just a dome.
Just a dome over them that completely covers the reflective area and shines it down towards the vegetation. Because you know, one problem also with uplights is people walk looking down at their feet. And so if lights are shining in your eyes, it doesn't really help with safety.
I just think don't put them in. Like, I mean,
Right.
And again, I'm not.
people will be happy because it's less money.
Right.
That's what we
Rebuild
want.
right, rebuild right.
Exactly right.
But now let's make sure it's possible.
Yeah. So it should be as was or cheaper. is what
Right,
it should
and the
say.
second item actually on lighting is that they had dual lights there with
Yeah.
the intention of using amber during turtle season and white lights, but it's the only property down there that will have that. As you all know, there's a resolution from the town that calls for an all amber solution for the town. So there's no reason to have white light there for half the year only in Bayside Park. All the roadways will be amber all year long, and so I don't think that should be that tough of a sell there. And I can't believe.
Especially for uniformity.
In there, I doubt FEMA's gonna have an issue of whether or not you basically remove the white LEDs from that same exact, you can put the exact same fixture in there literally, but with amber LEDs and not have the two panels. So I don't see that should be a problem, nor should that be pushed back, again, due to the resolution of the town council to provide an all amber lighting solution for the town of Fort Myers Beach.
But
So-
again, if you have to do it by FEMA, just put the dual lighting in and never turn the white on.
Mhm. No, there's a cost savings there, I suppose.
But FEMA would want their money back then.
No white. Okay, that's two. Rose, you brought up artificial turf.
Yeah,
Turf.
because
And,
it's really just plastic and with people walking on it and eating around it and dropping stuff and then birds coming and eating it and whatever, just putting more plastic into the environment.
Right on the water, right on the bay. And I remember I think it was a few days after they had installed it, I walked and I noticed the pieces on the sidewalk from it. So it was already disintegrating, so.
yeah, I mean, we all know that it flakes off and
And it's
it
just a
breaks
waste
down.
And it's a waste of money.
There's gotta be a
Yeah,
better
natural
option.
Grass. Or,
Ground cover.
yeah, ground
There'd be
covering.
something, but you know,
Plants.
I mean, vision
Trim.
blanket with, you know, whatever picnickers are sitting on it, I mean, they need to I mean, maybe we don't provide the option for them, but they have to go again to their designer and say, listen, you have to come up with something more sustainable than that. Unless you have a better idea.
Tile.
But yeah,
Pavers.
even if it was just pavers that they
Pervious
put in,
pavers.
pervious pavers, yeah.
With maybe some plants in between.
Well, they want a place to sit and hang out, so it has to be comfy. Pavers and stones and shells, I mean, those would work, but they want something soft.
There's gonna be a band shell there too, right? A little music
Stage.
venue too to,
And that's something else. They didn't put any electrical outlets or next to the band shell, so
so I guess because of FEMA, they're never gonna be able to put
Right,
anything in
it's
there.
just acoustic.
Come on, I mean,
stage.
really? They're not gonna
It'll be acoustic
slide
stage.
an outlet there, I'm pretty sure they will. So maybe bring that up as well, to say, listen, you guys also don't have any power to the band shell.
Yeah,
So
that's
what you're
important.
telling us is FEMA's not gonna allow you to do it. You can't make a change.
Right, interesting.
Can't have it both ways, can
Yeah.
you? I mean, I'm being a little precocious here.
But it's true.
Well, again, it's right as
Well,
right.
unless
so.
the town wants to pay for it.
Yeah, sure, that's true. So, artificial turf, and then the last one was the coconut palms. In there, besides the coconut hazard, which I suppose they could trim those, you know, they'll make a case, but
But you're not supposed to have them within 10 feet of a moving body of water
Just
in
switch.
South Florida.
Are they still there since the storm?
Oh, I don't know that.
I didn't think
Yeah.
so. Why not
Yeah.
just replace them with sables?
Great idea.
Yep.
Well, I think that, what isn't it that, I think they consider actively maintain coconut palms and not be invasive. But if you don't maintain them, it means you let the coconuts go to
Propagate
maturity,
or
then
whatever,
then
yeah.
they're considered invasive.
But again, I guess the whole point in talking about Bayside Park is we want our town to be sustainable and we want our town to be environmentally sound. So it's our responsibility to set a good example in our town area properties.
Yeah, I mean, native would make sense from a resiliency standpoint as well. Now, I can't comment on the resiliency of coconut palms other than maybe through the hurricane, but in general, natives, right?
Yeah, sable palms seem to be bomb-proof.
Native.
You know, we have both on our property and, you know, they seem to just have a tougher skin, if you
Mhm.
will. Because the ones that got
Oh,
damaged
yeah.
with us is because, you know, the house went through them.
Right, no, it's
But there's also a sable right next to it. and it.
Bulletproof.
You know, it's leaning and that's about it.
So choose a native option maybe is a good
Yes.
to it.
And it still will be a palm, you know.
Mhm.
So FEMA shouldn't
Well,
question
probably it'll
that too
throw off
much.
more shade actually than those coconut palms, because that's not
Mhm.
gonna do it. You know, I know they have the fabric.
Well, a lot of these things may be something you have to do after the fact, honestly. You just may have to do it as it was, and then there may be some funding from like the DEP or some other organizations to make it more environmentally friendly. It seems kind of silly to put in a tree and then take it out, put it in
I
a tree,
know.
but, you know.
Well, from the government.
There's a lot of things that FEMA that happen that way.
Mhm. Okay, I'll make a motion then. How about that? I will make a motion to advise the town council at the upcoming town council meeting. Let me start over here. Lights, dual lights. So, I'll make a motion that the upcoming town council meeting, which I won't be at, I'm gonna be out of town, so, are you in town? Is it this coming Monday
Yeah, it's this Monday.
at 9 o'clock?
I believe I'm in town.
Means the vice chair, you'd be the next in line unless you want to defer to another person. You don't mess around, we'd love to send you. You'd be available?
Yeah.
Okay. So I make a motion that the next town council meeting, next Monday, that we advise the town council that in their plans for the Bayside Park redevelopment renovations, that they address the uplights, which we feel don't meet the municipal lighting ordinance, and to either provide shields or come up with a different design effect. That the dual lights right now are not consistent with the town resolution, town council resolution for an all-amber solution for Fort Myers Beach. That the artificial turf, to search out alternatives, as artificial turf is plastic and coconut, and also look for a native option for the coconut palms that were in the original plan.
Second.
Second by Doc Fossum. Discussion? We always do our discussion before, don't we?
Mhm.
Do you want to put any kind of mention in there about, you know, if allowable by FEMA, and then if not, then subsequent to FEMA approval, do modifications? Leave yourself an out in case it just say FEMA, then you have a way to still get what you want without
Mm-hmm.
risking that clawback.
All right, so how do we put that in with the motions then? That hasn't been voted on. So,
Well, to make a modification, you'd make an amendment and you get the seconder to agree. And then,
okay, so I'll make an amendment to the motion. that we include the verbiage that if we will look back at the meeting minutes and write up
Do you want to say something specific about
FEMA,
Species.
basic,
well, I mean about FEMA caring about species-specific changes?
No, generic about all the changes. The
About
minor
it,
Yeah, I would just say if
Generic
allowable by, and reimbursable by FEMA.
Okay.
yeah. So we can conclude that portion by, I'll amend it by saying that if it's allowable by FEMA, and if not, the town should provide an alternative,
And yeah,
has the ability to provide these alternatives.
subsequent to FEMA completion.
And then you
Second.
re-second it?
I second.
Okay. So, any opposition? Okay, motion carries unanimously. This motion on Bayside
So
Park.
these motions will be forwarded to me so I can present.
So these will, yeah, you know what, I have a form I use when I approach the town for our discussions, and I usually send that to them prior to the advisory board report, and it has the recommendations, and we forward that, so I can prepare that for you, you know,
Okay.
and get that to you if you'd like. So, Bayside Park, that was a quick one. Anything else on Bayside Park? No? So let's move along here. Beach accesses. So here, I'm hoping, I didn't personally have the opportunity to do any research on resilient beach access design. Has anybody done any research or looked at any recommendations for the beach accesses? Unless staff has any updates on beach accesses, Chad? Can you give us any kind of update, or where it's at, or what is your thoughts of what's going on, or is that just still down the road?
So, FEMA's done their inspection to evaluate the accesses and all the town assets that were at the accesses. There's been complaints regarding ADA access over the berm. As far as resilient accesses, that's been a direction from TDC for throughout the county. How do we prevent these scours that happen in the storm, or mitigate them at least? And you know, as you know, usually those scours happen where you had bare sand surrounded by vegetation, and the unstabilized sand was the path of least resistance, and where you had the most erosion with the ebb flow of the storm surge. As far as resilient access design, you have several options. You could vegetate and have a walkover structure, leaving that in place, but that would require you know, an unknown amount of time to get those designed, permitted, and in place, probably on the order of 2 years. What I've spoken to coastal engineering consultants about was simply pushing the berm out to create overlapping structures or overlapping berms, so that you have an on-grade access to the sides once that berm is pushed out. The other option is you
That would form that comma, basically, sort of that comma at the head of it.
Sure, so you have let's use water bottles.
You can use these. How about these? This is the berm, and then you're gonna just
So
push
we
it.
have a contiguous berm, you know.
Does the berm actually cross the accesses right now?
Yep.
Oh, it does, okay.
Yep. So we have a contiguous berm, simply pushing it out, maybe not completely, but so you have a bit of an overlapping. I don't know if that necessarily solves, you know, scour issues, but it would certainly help mitigate storm surge coming in and dissipate wave action. And that was what the coastal engineer suggested as a probably the most efficient way to achieve some resiliency.
Mhm.
Now,
You know,
could you
still
get-
having
Can you
berm
put a
coverage.
serpentine sort of pathway
I was
through,
gonna say,
or
could
is
you put
that
a- could you
limited
put a
by?
multi mat on it?
Yeah, so ADA access requires I think without rails and full disclosure, I'm not an ADA expert, but I think it's a 1 to 20 slope. So we need to, basically create a 1 to 20 slope for, quote unquote ADA access. Right now, we're at the berms are a 1 to 5 or a 1 to 4 slope, I'm not sure.
Hmm.
But you'd take a mowing mat and put it through around the berms, right? I don't think, we don't think we have to do that at every beach access, but certainly enough where we could let it be known for.
Yeah, I mean, that brings up another good question, is what's the town's, how many ADA accesses are required? Are all accesses required to be ADA, and where are you required to have ADA access to? I mean, once you have
I
feet
think,
feet in the sand, aren't you on the beach, so you've made it to the beach?
yeah, I think the ADA access is to the sand, not along the sand. But
Right.
I think wherever there's handicap parking, so when there's parking, that's where in the past have been targeting the mowing mats.
Okay,
If there's no parking, then you figure people with a mobility problem will go to an access that has
Mhm.
handicap parking.
yeah, I mean, my understanding, same conversation with Bayside Park is I believe the intention is to have the ADA facilities that were in place at the accesses before, have them restored to what they were before. So accesses that had moving mats before, I believe the intention is to have them there again.
Okay.
And what's the timeline? When do you expect it to be wrapped up enough where you can go then and modify the berm? Because it's got to get signed off on right before you do that.
Right, so we have, we need to get it surveyed, signed off on by our engineer, signed off on by FEMA, paid for by FEMA. Timeline, this is my first rodeo, so I'm not sure.
So on that subject of more of a serpentine, is that just limited by width of the access, or is that shown to be helpful? I guess it wouldn't with a Moby mat. They don't really serpentine very well, I don't think.
I think they'd make them, they put down a section and then
Yeah,
cut
I
another
mean,
section, cut another section.
a lot of people have been saying serpentine. When I hear serpentine, I hear that, I see, kind of an undulating, like a snake would crawl across.
Right.
I think what I just showed with the overlapping would be kind of more,
That's a block, yeah. It's just a.
you only have
Oh, it's
20,
not
30 feet of width on the right of way to play with, right?
20 to 30 feet. Yeah.
Yeah, for the width of the access.
So that
Mhm.
it also limits your options. But again, the common dune, overlapping, and the slope of the berm are all considerations. Something that's vegetated throughout is obviously going to be more stable than things that have unvegetated paths. But you have to have somewhere to walk, and where people are walking, you're not going to have vegetation. So nothing's going to be perfect.
We're not going to vegetate this berm anyway, right, because of the renourishment standards.
Right, so we have the renourishment coming, but the intention is to have vegetation there eventually, but at this stage, no. The berm will be worked into the renourishment project and then vegetated in accordance to the new management plan.
Chad, do you know offhand how many beach accesses there are open that do have public parking? People have been asking me. It's not all of them yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That would be a question for, I can ask Base on that.
Thanks.
It's interesting, there's a lot that never had parking and now they do because there's no homes there. They're just all pulled up on the properties.
Oh, people park in people's houses. My next door
yeah.
neighbor has people in there all the time. It's not just the lady with the handicap, it's people try to drive on the beach through it,
Right. Everybody's getting stuck in the sand too.
There's been a lot of traffic on the beach in the mornings
And
from the night before.
people can be irate when they can't find a spot that they like.
Why is there no park? What do you mean I can't park? Yeah.
You know, another idea, it seems like with the berm is just to kind of make a door. Not
Yeah.
an angle.
Yeah, extend it out a little bit.
That was kind of the de facto thing at Connecticut Street. People walk and there's a gap there where the pilings are, so they go around the berm.
I thought there were commas at all these beach access berms.
No.
No? Oh.
It takes a lot of space.
Yeah,
And
some
the-
are featureless, I mean.
And the other issue, if you have 20 feet, let's say, or whatever it is, width, some are wider, some are narrower, that goes out quite a ways. And if you put something like this and you're basically forcing people onto private property, that's also not, you know, acceptable by a lot of people. So.
So for beach access, is this something that we do want to do any research? As in search resilient beach access design?
Someone had told me that Murph was the original people to do beach accesses.
Well, Crab did a couple,
Yeah.
but then they didn't get, I guess, they didn't get the buy what an ideal beach access is. Because one thing I look at is say, if there should be at a low level some kind of wall, if it's some kind of breakaway wall, so the car lights don't shine on the beach. Because I know a lot of them too, beach access there's another street the other way, and people get in the stop sign and their car lights shine right through on the beach. And now that there's a berm there, you can see the light shining off the berm. It's more evident.
Are the beach, are we also talking about signage too, or is that something that the town is just already gonna use the same signage
They're putting back the same signage.
they are? So that's not part of this. Okay.
Yeah. So,
And the
Can
re-
we request to include, like, there were some streets that, like Connecticut that used to have the sign with the birds.
They're putting those back, the interpretive
At
signs?
right, the same, what are they called?
The interpretive signs.
Oh, interpretive signs, yes. But can
With
we-
ironically, the one that was on Connecticut Street ended up in my yard. Still in my garage waiting to be picked up, and it's living on shifting sands.
That's funny. But, so can we request signage to be in other areas that were not before?
Yeah,
I mean,
but I think it's a separate item as far as just the reconstruction, right?
okay.
Where are you thinking of, Jim? Where need,
My street. My street, but other, just other
oh,
streets.
you want informative sign there, is that
Yeah,
it?
informative or just something, fun. We have a lot of kids that, walk through
And there was nothing there before, is that what you're saying? And you
There
want-
was the sign, the big orange sign that talked about,
Okay.
the
The rules.
rules,
What not to
do.
but nothing really,
I don't think they were at each of them.
no.
No, we made six different signs,
Right.
which we could reuse that design. I think just to change the logo, it's got the old logo. And we made six of them, put them on six different accesses.
Mhm.
And they were targeted, so the ones about trash and stuff were the busier accesses.
Yeah, I think we chose
And
them.
these will
We
be
chose them,
covered?
actually.
Yeah, I
we
remember
chose
that.
them. They
And
actually-
these
which
would be
ones went
covered
where.
by FEMA as well?
If they were destroyed by the storm,
Mm.
to replace them, they'll be covered, hopefully.
And then Pink Shell had some
My
great
neighbor's got one in his
informational
backyard.
signs.
Should we get
But
that
those
back?
were-
Some of the interpretive
Pink
signs?
Shell.
I'm just kidding, no, but
created,
those are the ones that
and
I've
what you're
seen.
saying,
From the beach
They are
and
coming
stuff.
back.
Like some of our
It will be time.
our seasonal signs.
But I met with.
Oh, yeah.
the owner
I was thinking about
earlier
going up
today.
again, I'm thinking now.
He said to design new ones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, hey, one, just a point of order here. The meeting's actually Tuesday, not Monday. Monday's Juneteenth,
Oh, good point.
Monday's a holiday, so that,
whatever that is.
Town council meeting or?
yeah.
Town council, so, yeah, just need you to check your calendar on that. And on the accesses, I would say that we sort of table that for now, and we put some thought into it, because it is a nice opportunity. Without Crab there as well, Crab was sort of always responsible for the signage and the decorating.
Kind of the everything else.
Of the access itself. So maybe we can table it and we'll leave it on the agenda and start next time and see if we can't finish it off. At least come with some ideas that we can advise the town council on and move to the next one.
I have a question. What is CRAB?
Crab was a committee that's no longer,
Oh,
Yeah,
it was a cultural,
recreation.
community resources advisory board. And so the idea was that BORCAB had Bay Oaks, CELCAB had Mount House, and then everything else, all the other parks and everything else was crab. At the time, there wasn't a whole lot, and then Newton Park became part of Selcap. But there wasn't a lot, but then, you know, we have Bayfront Park and that kind of stuff, so they were involved in people in Bayfront Park.
Is it Bayfront or Bayside? What are we gonna call it?
It's based on.
Are you talking about
It's Bayside,
like Memphis Bayside?
Yeah.
Is it Bayside? I call it both. It's interchangeable. Okay, so we have consensus on that. Table it, and then we'll bring it up again.
Yeah.
Sound good? Do a little research. All right, so let's move on. Vegetation on town properties. So this was brought up to just discuss, and I don't know if this is the right time, but I did go up to town council based on our motions last time and got some feedback on our initiative guidance report. And one of those was, the feedback was to work with maybe the Native Garden, or the, not Native Garden Club.
Native Plant Society?
Estero Island
Garden Club, and whoever else would like to participate with some recommendations and some ideas of what we can do with town vegetation, really. So that would include Bayside Park, which we're providing them some information on. But it would be, right now, I suppose it would be the along Estero Boulevard. Again, and the implication was, let's try to green up this town a little bit if we can. You know, this dreary sand, gray color's got to go. But I don't know what, I mean, maybe the first thing we need to do is identify what areas we're talking about.
And I had submitted a PowerPoint that hopefully you all got. So I sent that to Chad, and it also went to the local planning agency group, because they also have been talking about vegetation on Fort Myers Beach, and it's like they're doing this thing over here and we're doing this here, and then there's other groups out there doing other stuff, and it's like we should be a united front and kind of consolidate. So
More done together.
Well, I was approached by Sarah Probst because that came up at the LPA meeting, and she said that's not, necessarily in their venue. So is that something that you're interested in? And I had told her we've already discussed, we've already begun discussing it. So I hadn't heard back, I didn't get a response, so I'm not sure where that's at. But
I actually came on Saturday to do the cleanup, the kayak cleanup for Keep Fleet County Beautiful. And I had talked to her a little bit about what council, I guess town council at the last meeting, they were talking about maybe getting the town involved in planting and cleaning up the side streets in Estero Boulevard. And she wants to be involved. She says, I can get, tons of volunteers to plant and to clean up. And she said, I really would like to work with the town, so I think we should
One of the tricks
utilize them.
One of the tricks, and I know it was suggested we start cleaning up the little parking strip too. And I was riding my bike the other day, and there's just so much crap in that parking strip. If you try to mow that, I don't want to be anywhere close to it. There'll be rocks and tile and glass flying everywhere.
when you say parking strip,
That's the little strip between the sidewalk and
oh,
the street. But then going in individual neighborhoods, you just have to, there's some people that are already doing hibiscus is when they're already kind of cleaning up some stuff. But if someone's going to be doing construction, then you don't really want to go and vegetate.
right, yeah, it's just a waste.
Yeah, this is a conversation I have with my wife all the time.
we're still having trouble keeping debris out of the road, much less,
I actually saw
vegetate.
what do they call the sweepers, where they clean
Oh,
the
yeah.
water
Yeah, town
on
owns
the
one.
sidewalks. I haven't seen one of those in years on the Estero Boulevard.
Town owns one, yeah.
So is that the town? Because I thought it was
believe so.
county that owns the sidewalks.
I don't know. That's a good question whether it was a town or a county, but the town does own the street sweeper. I believe they bought it a few years ago.
Yeah, no, I've seen them sweep or
Towns?
clean the
Side streets?
No, not side streets, but Times Square area before the pop-up. But I've never seen them on the Estero Boulevard sidewalks. Has anyone?
I've seen them like on the main street down by Pink Shell.
Yeah, I saw one this morning.
Yeah.
That's
on
what
the
I
street.
saw.
Yeah,
this
there's
On
morning.
the street.
down my
And
street.
it's I would guess it's county, because I know one of the concerns is with the lack of vegetation, all the sand's going onto the road. and then it gets into the stormwater system. So they're cleaning it out, and it's getting in, and it's a lot easier to pick up the sand before it gets in the system than after it does. So, and I know where a lot of the sand placement's been going on, there's been a lot of sand on the road, where a lot of the trucks have been dumping sand.
So get us on back on track here. So if on vegetation on town property, what's the scope? I mean, it's town property, but what's really at hand here? Like you said, the parkway is what we used to call it, from the sidewalk to the street. You know, that strip, whatever it is, between the
I've always heard it called a parking strip, maybe that's a
Parking
Western
strip?
thing. Now,
probably. We're gonna get a car up on it now.
no, you know, one thing it's good, I think, to try to just do things you stay ahead of, you know, instead of getting the work done, recommend certain things that get in ahead of any kind of planting. So like you were talking before about recommending the town adopt a 100% native vegetation policy on town planted town land. And maybe that'd be a good suggestion to make the council. So going forward with all the tree planting that's going on, that would be in place.
So those parking strips, again, I'm confused. You're calling it town property, but my understanding is this.
That is county property, but the town has taken over the maintenance of that.
So, but does that mean that the county will pay for the plants and
They
then
have.
we
No.
just,
They actually have
Yeah, they give us a bunch of money
$800,000
to do it,
to
just
do
to take
it,
it over.
to allow the town to do it instead of the county
since
doing it.
Ian?
No, well before you. You remember when we were putting all the plants in, they were working to get established?
Yeah,
That was a town program, because that's something the county would not do. County would just put down that cheap turf.
okay. So, because I always notice down by Pink Shell, it's just so beautiful. I understand they have a bigger parking strip down there to plant trees and plants, but the parking strip on most of the island is pretty narrow.
Well, the north end, the south end, it gets quite wide. The right-of-ways are
Oh.
enormous, actually.
Yeah, but you know, on one side of the street, you've got the power lines, so that limits what you can plant, right? On the other side, like I said, narrow parking strip for the most part, and then you have private property. But you know, a program we talked about, Green FMB, would be to get those private property owners, give them plants, and then you could maybe have some, I don't know, some theme to the plants. You know, nature doesn't like a row of similar trees. We like it, but nature likes a variety of things. So, you know.
I think for the the locals and the people that live on the island, using Sanibel as an example, both islands were underwater, but Sanibel had less catastrophic building failure because they have more greenery, plant life. They don't rake their beaches and they have healthy dunes. And I think saying, look, both islands were hit by the same storm. Look how well Sanibel is bouncing back because they didn't lose these big structures, because they had an infrastructure of plant life, and you know, native or non, but just plants alone saved that island in a lot of ways. And I think trying to portray that in some way could be very beneficial, not only to stop some of the crazy raking that's going on, even up onto the berms, which people are raking up on and next to the berms, but then also just maybe getting more advocacy for dunes and going all into that. But it'll help with getting plants that are bigger and stronger, that are native, that can handle these storms that are going to keep happening. So I don't know if there's some way to portray that, like when we're going about this, but I've been thinking about that since the storm, because I drove on Sanibel a lot, I drove here, and I'm just thinking like, Sanibel, like it was bad, and I'm not trying to downplay that at all. They lost a lot, but they would have lost a lot more had their island been as greenless as Estero.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Sorry, that's my soapbox.
I appreciate, you know me, I'm a big fan of dunes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of resistance to some people to put them in. They think you put in, you know, one CO and all of a sudden the whole beach is full of.
We need to help that ignorance.
Well, we have a managed beach zone plan for the renourishment,
Right.
which we hopefully will provide homeowners with incentives to not only get sand, but the only way they can get sand is to put in a dune. As you can recall, it's 75% the width of the lot, so it's pretty significant.
Yeah.
Um,
And I was looking through the flood maps in Sanibel, which is pretty fascinating because there are some essentially beachfront houses that are not in the V zone because there's enough vegetation between them and the water.
it's pretty serious.
And I mean, you don't hear, I mean, I don't anyway, I haven't heard people complaining about these types of things. It's just because certain people on Estero like to see flat beach to the water. But over on Sanibel, they have what, the country's best beaches on Sanibel. Bowman's Beach is like the best shelling beach in that. So I mean, I think using that as an example, as these are good beaches and they're world renowned. People come to Sanibel for the beaches because of how they let nature be nature. And I don't know. I just think there's something to having this essential etch-a-sketch of the area. We redraw it a little bit better and stronger than it was.
Okay, so what, can I look at the agenda, please? So we're under vegetation, town properties. So what we need to do is someone basically go up and down Estero Boulevard and look at the areas, take pictures, maybe even ask the garden club, like, wasn't it the garden club that walked up and down the streets to
Master gardeners of Lake
Master
County.
Garden? Yeah. Maybe ask them to maybe take a look at our island and come up with some ideas, and because they're the ones that are gonna know, okay, that you've got 2 feet, what would look good, what would work well in this area, and then you have areas that are bigger, they would know probably, so,
No, I agree, and they showed up last meeting
right.
requesting the help.
Right, so we just need to ask them to help us.
Help participate.
Help participate.
Is there anybody in the, are you, no, you're not now.
My wife is.
You're on the garden club? You are? I
Yeah.
thought so. Is that something you might want to do for the advisory board, is to just approach them
I've seen
to?
them Monday.
Okay, I mean, just let them know we talked, and that's a thought we had, that Jennifer had, was to get them involved as they've requested to see.
And the Lake County Master Gardener Program, I'm meeting them probably next week sometime, so, yeah.
Them
You
too.
can ask them,
And then
because I have some people that did the actual walking.
And then
Right.
once we have an idea, they have something laid out, maybe a plan of action on what the plans are, then we take that to the Native Society and nursery and see what they have to offer. Maybe they can give us a discount to help us out. And once we have all that, then we take it to town council for approval.
The question is timing though. With all the houses are destroyed, construction vehicles are gonna destroy anything you plant between the sidewalk and the street, the trucks are gonna park there. I mean, that anything you do until those houses are rebuilt, and I imagine they'll probably all be rebuilt, it's gonna be destroyed very quickly. That's have a plan in sight, but also realizing don't do it if you're almost guaranteed to have it destroyed.
Is there a time limit on using that 800,000?
No, it's just ours. We have to look after that partnership in perpetuity. But I kind of, usually when you do a house, the last thing you do is landscaping, right? Because it is going to get trashed. But then again, the opportunity now is that it's such a clean slate. So I know we have a vegetation plan, which I don't think ever got all the way through, right?
No, right, it hasn't been.
So you concentrate on vegetation plan, get that in place before people start replanting,
Right.
and then get it wrapped up, and then people know.
That would certainly prevent them from replanting invasives.
Yeah,
If
so,
that codified.
I know that there's this, and it's me too, right? There's a huge drive to get out there and physically
Just make a
get
change,
back and
right?
get things in our island, but the reality is, that's gonna be a ways away, but it gives us time to really think about the legislative side of this.
So we'll go back to my other question, the scope. So it's just to get parking strip, is there any other properties that?
Is that a good name? Because we really don't want them to park there.
No, what I call it, the parkway. So that's right, that's what they call it where I grew up.
I mean, we should come up with a name that doesn't
Well, is it
suggest
a
parking.
technical name?
Because further south, if you go down to, let's say, where that Munch Box, that was area, I mean, that starts to get wide there, and that whole area, I think, is plantable. I mean, so they brought the sidewalk up, but behind the sidewalk is county property that can be planted. So there you're talking about bushes and trees and not just a small strip of land.
Is
All
it
the way to
really
the south
county?
end, literally from the from Lingo down.
But I mean, everybody has their mailbox in that area. So is that not supposed to be there?
Well, I think there's only a few that are left. Most
I
of
mean,
the
but
people-
that's when you could see, they just put like 1,000 mailboxes before Ian on that land, that area. So
You know,
technically,
some places it's like a 50-foot right away, some places it's 65 feet.
It's a 100-foot at
In some places.
at
And-
the end
and
of the
lot-
island.
And a lot of times where the planting is, if you look at a map, it's pretty fascinating. We could always do that and kind of pick some areas because where those transitions are between different right-of-ways, a lot of times there's a big
Mhm.
piece of land there. You could actually put trees, you could do some things
Mhm.
with.
And technically, I mean, I don't think those would be, if it's in front of condos and, again, I guess more on the south side, those shouldn't necessarily be damaged because they shouldn't be driving through the
Yeah.
right of way to get there. They'll be using their access.
So a parking or park strip
Right,
is a narrow strip of land between the sidewalk and the street.
so let's call it a park strip,
park, not,
not parking,
Parking.
it's park strip, yeah, since it's
All
considered.
right, make me do it. Parkway.
And there's actually a native plant that does really well, and you actually can drive on it. Well, sunshine mimosas, you can actually, I mean, you can walk on them, you can drive on them.
Parkway.
I'm not sure you want to put like huge construction vehicles on it, but that could be something to start planting in a lot of areas. And then if there is construction, it would be possibly durable.
Mhm.
Is it a bush rose?
It's a
or-
ground cover.
It's a ground cover, so it's not, it's beautiful.
And I know a lot of people now, one thing the storm has done is it's created a Dune Sunflower fan club.
Oh, yeah.
People love all the Dune Sunflowers that
Mhm.
are popping up everywhere.
They're everywhere, yeah, I love them. Doing daisies. Okay,
Although
so.
they're sunflowers, they're the
Right.
daisy family, but
I know, alright.
there's daisies that are the size of a dime and daisies that are trees.
Yeah, I know. The old timers like to call them. So outside of the parking strip, is there anything we should be focused on? I mean, obviously Newton Park is not near ready for any type of vegetation. Bayside Park, we've talked about. Times Square, nothing in
Times-
Times Square, is there some?
What about pots in Times Square? Pots with some vegetation, I mean, I think even if we can just do a little bit, you know,
Are
something.
those areas, you know, where that wall is, that wave wall, that area back there? I mean, I haven't been down there for a
Somebody,
while.
yeah, it's still there, but somebody just told me that volunteers are gonna come out and paint. I believe it's maybe a
I
school
heard something
or
about that,
something.
yeah, mural or something.
But, you know, we can get some pots out there with some vegetation, you
Mhm.
know, something that can be moved when
But there was
construction.
vegetation planted there originally, right? That shouldn't have been,
There was trees there, and then there was like 10 large pots around Times Square that the garden club maintained.
okay, so that area I'm talking about was just mulch, wasn't it?
No, they
Yeah.
got some bushes in there.
Did they? Yeah.
Mhm.
I think so whatever you do, you have to probably accept that it'll be temporary.
yeah, is
Yeah.
there any reconstruction plans for Times Square? Nobody's submitted a permit yet that you,
Well, it
It's gonna
takes.
take all of them, that's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's very complicated, and I've tried to get council to discuss it and haven't had much luck with it. I mean, everything from just, you know, they talk about trying to get these hazard mitigation grants to just acquire some of the beachfront property and leave it natural. Well, make it natural, because it's not natural now.
So those
To,
building,
elevate
those restaurants, like, what, Tropical, those places, did
Sunset
they,
Grill.
Sunset Grill, did they own that property or did they lease that from the town?
No, LDOT's privately owned.
Oh, it's
The
private.
town doesn't own anything on the beach at all.
Some of the restaurants own their buildings and some did not, they
And,
leased.
and I was told by somebody that they can't rebuild there.
Some of the properties,
Hmm.
most of the properties along there, some of them have some intrusion into the EC zone, right? And particularly the Pierside Grill is almost entirely in the EC zone. And they were already on a, it's kind of like the same thing as the substantial damage, that if they had damage more than 50% of the structure, then they couldn't rebuild at all. And so now, of course, there's probably a way, you know, a special exemption, that kind of thing, but I haven't heard from the property owner at all about wanting to do anything. So I don't know.
Okay, well anyhow, it's, we can at least fix up the town-owned area, which
Mhm.
I believe is where the wave wall is. So I think we should, spruce that up and get some vegetation back in there.
Okay.
Was there any thought in the town council buying property that's now destroyed and making more parks, and not have people rebuild?
That is part of this hazard mitigation grant. Of course, the town doesn't have that kind of money, right? But the hazard mitigation grant, that's one of the things it does. The two main things that apply to us is one is paying people to lift their houses or build up high. And the second is to buy property that has repetitive loss. But they also do a cost benefit analysis. So if there's a $100,000 lot in Estero, or a whatever it is, $10 million lot, a bunch of lots on Fort Myers Beach, it's hard to do the cost benefit analysis.
I'm also thinking, county owns Lynn Hall and Crescent, and they both are adjacent to that area where those restaurants were at one point. I wonder if the county could look into maybe purchasing those areas and just continue on with Lynn Hall Park or Crescent, and just
Well, they
make it
would-
one big park.
But they would use this hazard mitigation grant. That's the same kind of pool they would get into. And if they did it, they would probably, because that's kind of related to the community development grant. That's at $1.1 billion is coming in, because that can pay for the 25% match for the hazard mitigation grant. That's being operated by the county. So if it was bought, I would doubt they would turn it over to the town. They'd probably keep it, connected in with their part, which is probably not a bad thing, because there's not really much you can do with this, I believe, in natural. Right?
I meant to bring up also on the Rebuild Right beach access is that Councilman Veach said at the town council meeting that there's a Times Square, there's potentially a beach access? Is that at least a property that has a strap number?
Yes, the county owns it. You know where the pier was, and the walkway to the Pierside Grill by Anita's Shops and the Dairy Queen and all that? There's a little strip in there, and that's actually got a strap number, and that's owned by the county.
By the county.
That I suggested there was, this is just kind of a moving pieces around, that if they would give us that, then we could connect it and maybe into Times Square and make it a beach access. Because right now we don't get TDC money for Times Square because it doesn't actually touch the beach. County land touches the beach, Times Square doesn't. And this is a thought, I don't know if that would even fly, but just trying to figure a way to get money.
Aren't we all?
Aside from bartending.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just saying.
So where does that leave us with vegetation town property? That we will go to the Sterile Island Garden Club and IFAS for some recommendations, and the scope is right now the parking strip.
Park strip.
Park strip. All right.
And I would like to have my PowerPoint added to the town website so that people could see
Oh, I like that.
native vegetation.
Well, I think that's just a matter of sending it to Jenny. She posted on our.
I don't know, I thought we needed a motion to do that stuff, but,
I don't think so.
okay.
It has more weight.
A motion to do it, if you need it.
Yeah, this has more weight if you give it a motion.
So then she can call Jenny and say, hey, there's a motion. All right, was anybody, I'll make a motion.
I'll make that motion. I think that's a great idea. I'm motion
I'll
made.
second.
Motion, add.
And just so you know, my meeting before here, Jenny is working on a communications plan that she's going to present 22nd, I think. And so, and I'll put some information out. So it's generally, what I want to put out and try to reach the people is like, how do you get your information? What can we do better to get information to people? But also, if you're an information provider, that, what topics do we push? Things like, the native plan is a good topic to push.
All in
The
favor?
pop-up.
All in favor of that motion? We didn't vote on
Oh,
that.
aye.
Aye. Okay, that's it. All right, now I'm in charge of the admin here.
Discussion?
Okay, discussion. Right. No, we already did discussion.
Yeah.
Pop-up.
Okay. So, let's move on.
I know, I was gonna say, the
So
pop-up.
vegetation actually will stay, and we'll get an update from Rose on the way back, so that'll stay. Check access will stay.
So,
And
real quick on that, with the pop-up, we have a basically a a piece of paper with the QR code that links you to the town to sign up for alerts. So, so I always encourage people to sign up for those alerts.
Excellent.
And then on vegetation, Chad sent out yesterday the tree ordinance
Mm-hmm.
draft.
Yeah, I didn't check email this morning, sorry.
Now, for clarity, we have a vegetation ordinance and a tree ordinance that we're
Yes,
proposing?
there's two separate.
things?
Right,
They are
they're
separate.
separated by Roseanne, yeah. Just because she was pushing for the tree ordinance to be redone. And those were on the initiative guidance report, the landscape and vegetation management, so those were ongoing. That's, we're waiting for codification of that. The tree ordinance, the same. Also was brought up was the landscape irrigation and water shortage, the model ordinance there. Dark skies and these were brought up for input from the council as well as just guidance and whether or not anything should or should not be on our list for our agendas, for future agendas. Rebuild Right was the beach accesses. Rebuild Right Bayside Park. Rebuild Right mangrove protections we brought up. Rebuild Right was town vegetation, which was highlighted. That was something they definitely wanted us to prioritize. Rebuild Right was density intensity as it affects the environment on a barrier island. Rebuild Right beach obstructions, the environmentally critical zone, EC zone protections, beach raking and grooming compliance, and additional items as directed by town. So there were no additions from them, but there also wasn't any deletions from them, so those will make up our agenda moving forward. A couple items that did come up also were really school curriculum based. So the idea here is if we have anything to share from a curriculum standpoint for the beach school. So they've reached out to a number of people. I know they've already reached out, I think, to Jennifer. They've talked to folks like Turtle Time, just to look at maybe the beach school, even sort of position it as almost as a magnet school, or kind of like the beach Sanibel water school, where there's programming and basically content is what they're looking for. So that's something I suppose we can add. And also on the town vegetation was the idea again about a Arbor Day, sort of a tree giveaway. Is there something we can do even
Yeah, I
outside of
think
Arbor
we
Day?
should call it, if you can I just say something real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Call it Get FMB Green Again.
Mm-hmm.
Just something to, we're reaching out to clubs and other
Gotta brand
places
it.
so we can brand it and
Brand the idea,
How
yeah.
about regreen FMB?
re-green
Green
FMB. That's good.
lyrical.
Re-green FMB. That's catchy. Also, I have a question in regards to vegetation and building. And maybe you might know this, Bill, are green walls considered part of, maybe we need to look into this for the vegetation ordinance. When building, you have to have a certain amount of vegetation to get your permit, right?
Yeah, there are some requirements. It's not quite as, I think, like you have to have a certain number of trees or this kind of thing.
For what kind of structures?
Or multi.
For like
Like
say
a house?
Margaritaville.
Oh, for Margaritaville.
Right, say Margaritaville. Was there something when they applied for permits that they have to have?
So commercial
Sure.
and multifamily are regulated by Chapter 10 in the code for development orders. Single families are not.
Right.
But there's some requirements, right? Like, don't you need a certain number of trees or,
For single families?
yeah.
No, sir.
No, unless
Or
that's
buildings, commercial property?
commercial properties,
Commercial
yes.
properties
Yes.
and multifamily are regulated by Chapter 10.
Yeah.
Are green walls considered like a part of the,
Like a hedge, you mean?
no, green walls, I just learned this.
Oh, on the
is-
side of a building.
Right,
Yeah.
is that considered part of like, needed for vegetation? Is that considered part of it? Cause
Green paint?
green
Green wall,
walls.
green wall.
Oh, you
like-
mean like ivy going up the side of a wall.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
Or a lot of them put
Center.
plants in the wall,
Yeah.
put a watering system. It's
Yeah.
very, it's very big in urban areas.
I think Councilor Woodson brought that up recently, right? That she had a visit on the East Coast and was
Oh, she
very
talked about,
impressed
yeah.
by the vegetation and things like green walls. I don't think she used that term, but the concept was there, whether it was climate trellises or whatever it was.
I actually heard it in the planning of the Moss Marina building, that they said there's, you know, they're gonna have the appropriate amount of vegetation to build, and the lady had mentioned green walls, and I thought, are green walls really?
Is that covered, Chad? I don't think so. Green walls, I mean, that doesn't contribute. There's very specific in our vegetation ordinance, we went through that, whenever it was, we went through it. And it's, you have to have X amount of bushes, X amount of non-pervious planted areas. I mean, it's pretty specific with the commercial
Yeah, there are no
requirements.
green wall requirements in our code.
No.
But I think, you know,
But I wonder if
their
people think.
plan is, they've got this huge deck with parking underneath it.
Mhm.
And so that huge deck, how are you gonna vegetate over parking?
Right,
And a few pots here and there.
right.
So because of their design, they're probably trying to find a way around it, I'm guessing.
That's,
I don't want to discourage green walls, they're great,
yeah.
but horizontal green is also pretty good.
One last item actually I missed, feedback. Actually, this is the thing that Sarah had brought to me. She said that it came to, I think, the
LPA?
not the LPA, the Anchorage Committee. A multifamily docks ordinance. That they felt that it wasn't their scope. You know, as you know, because we've gone to them before, their scope, they feel is just the mooring field.
Yeah.
So whereas, you know, people say they have things to do with the marine environment, I mean, that's not, you know, obviously part of ours. And so, and she hasn't gotten back, but I said we would be happy to look into it. So I didn't realize there were multifamily docks.
I think they mean like condos that have docks, right?
I'm guessing maybe, yeah, that's probably what it is. So that's just to let you know that was brought up.
It's- Because the LPA deals with land use. We deal with the marine resources,
Resources.
so it's kind of like,
Right.
Well, I know before the storm we were talking about having a joint meeting with a couple different groups. That might be a good in for that.
Well, if they say no, you don't need a meeting with somebody who says no.
Right. So we haven't been
That's a very
prompted
good
to
point.
add it to the.
Steve, what's the question with
Just
these
what's
docks?
the ordinance, to take a look at it. I don't know if they need it to be
To see if they're, are they
modernized
too big?
or.
Is that what we're concerned with?
I don't know what the concerns are. I just know that the subject was multifamily docks ordinance. So I don't know if that was just a modification, to modernize it, to clarify it. So
I know Paul-
I still haven't had a chance to look at it.
Well, I don't know if this is related or not, but I know an issue that I've been seeing a lot, especially around Fort Myers Beach, is some of the docks going in are those compressed plastic docks, which last forever, but they put them down and then they're cutting them off, and all those little plastic shavings are going right into the water. I think that needs to be addressed if we're talking about docks with whoever.
If you see that on Fort Myers Beach, please go give me a call.
I will. I've been seeing it a lot before the storm, but yeah, I'll be keeping my eye on it.
So aren't docks under the
Crazy.
state regulations since it's water?
Right, that's what I
Yes.
was wondering.
So-
State and federal.
So we have there's no ordinance.
Well, there isn't, we do have a dock ordinance. I mean, I had to have, when I put a dock in, I had to have approval by the town. Keith Capone came out actually,
But
the
there's-
guy came out. But you also have to, well, it's, what I ran into is I actually need a permit from the state because it was a man-made waterway. If you're on a natural lagoon or if you're on the bay, then you need a DEP permit, I believe. Does that sound right, Chad?
It's regulated by total overwater structure area, and the number of mooring areas will dictate what level of permitting you need.
Yeah, well, canals usually on mooring.
It could
so-
be, you know, doesn't matter if it's a canal or natural water body or aquatic reserve. Shouldn't say it doesn't matter. Those different levels will dictate, along with the area of the dock and the number of mooring areas, as to what level of permitting is
Can you
required.
comment on the multifamily docks ordinance? Have you heard about it, or do you know anything about that?
The planners are working on it, and I think the code was a little bit silent on it, so they're working on drawing up some guidelines.
And do you have any idea what the event that brought it to people's attention was? No? Okay.
Was it maybe the beach theater when they took out all those mangroves to build a dock?
Well, no, I don't know. Maybe. But that'd be a commercial dock. Anyway, so I guess we'll wait to see on that, but let's stay on agenda here if we can. How are we doing on time? Pretty good. So maybe before we, I probably could have added that, but I can maybe we'll do that during members and items reports. Shoreline Spotlight article, we can review that real quickly. That's more of an administrative task. I did receive Rose, that's been submitted. That was because that was June, you got it to me right, nice and early. July is Wendy, so July 1st maybe. I think that's what we try to do, and then have it submitted before the meeting.
And I forwarded to Chad, not you anymore?
Right,
And
right.
then
Because
Chad-
the PIO now wants to review the Spotlight articles, correct?
Yeah, please.
So that'd be great. And then Mayor Rose, you're
Yep,
on
I'm next.
deck, and Steve's in the hole again. In the hole, live in the hole. So anyway, that's Shoreline Spotlight. How about we have Murphy's later? Let's do so the council report update. Oh, that was mine. I missed that. I was thinking
Is it
staff.
over
Yeah. So I actually did that out of order. I apologize. I didn't realize that. When I looked at that, I was mistaken that for the staff report update. So yeah, that was. You guys got the council report update. Maybe now I'll bring up another item that's sort of in the that I picked up at the council meeting. Is the subject of the dune walkover. One thing that I guess I was going to bring up here to the to the Marine and Environmental Resource Task Force is for those of you that maybe I can give you the executive summary. There's a couple moving parts here, as you well know. First of all, we never got to weigh in on the dune walkover and provide advice, which I think was completely wrong because it's an environmental event. I don't know if you agree with that. Obviously, we'd asked for the meeting in February, and we weren't allowed until April, and that was well past the date in March that was approved. I think the concern we have, maybe that I'll bring up here with the Marine Resource Task Force, Environmental Resource Task Force, is that right now there was a movement, there was a vote to provide a letter to the owners, again, the executive summary, that would allow typically, let me preface this, typically if there's an appeal, which there's an appeal on that ruling, that they wait for that ruling to be completed before they issue a permit. The town council has voted to provide the owners with a letter that would basically indemnify the town from any issues if he was to begin building prior to the appeal being completed. And during the discussion, the one item that was lacking in the discussion was that there's damage. I mean, if the appeal is successful and the ruling is reversed and construction has already occurred, then they would have to reverse and rip all that back out. And I think the point I'm making is that what was missed is all the destruction in the EC zone based on those events. So in my opinion, I think it's careless to allow them to, and irresponsible to allow them to build that, knowing that there is a possibility that it has to be ripped out. And I don't think anybody has advised the council of that, of that fact. So I had wanted to bring that up, during this council report, so that we can maybe weigh in on it. And if we're going to be going to the meeting, to advise them that it's inadvisable to issue a permit knowing that it's under appeal, and it could potentially result in environmental damage to our environmentally critical zone.
Well, I think as individuals, both for us and then also anyone who this is affecting, they should write all the council members a letter about it, how they're feeling personally. Like, I've been thinking about that.
And there was a really good turnout.
Yeah.
The group came out in force to talk about this.
Yeah.
I think the idea here though was the advisory committee advises the council, so doing something as a committee.
Oh no, I'm just saying like
Yeah.
that on our own, but as far as
I mean, since 2018, since that big red tide bloom, the birds are hurting. And that's like the last place the birds are, is down there. And even now they're having hardly any of them. And anything that goes on there, like if they start something, that's going to scare them away. And then if they decide to keep going, it's going to scare them away. If they decide to rip it out, it's going to scare them away.
The premise is, and here's an important fact too, maybe we can share, is that the DEP permitted that project. The DEP is responsible for vegetation, really. I mean, that's what they're responsible for. And so they weighed in, and that was what they're basing their decisions on, is that there will be no damage done by this. The Army Corps of Engineers weighed in on it, but you know what? They're responsible for the water. Who never weighed in on it. So in this particular situation, so what was been missing this entire time is somebody to actually provide information that it is harmful to the wildlife. And so the decision was made, and it's been made, and it's being appealed. But the town council went forward assuming that there will be no damage, no problems, no issues with wildlife, specifically the threatened and endangered birds that forage and nest in that area.
Where are they getting that information?
Well, I mean, that's just the process that was
Hearsay.
followed.
That's their guess.
Here's,
I mean, you get a dog close to those nesting areas, even with the posted signs, the birds get all alert. People are coming over a boardwalk with pets and animals and.
Right. We all know that, and I think it's under appeal from the Audubon. So I think that will be heard. I mean, it's being litigated, so that will be heard. But I think what is in our scope and our responsibility is to advise the council that issuing a permit prior to the full appeal process is irresponsible, because it will bring potentially do harm to that in the environmentally critical zone. That's unnecessary if the appeal process is
What was irresponsible to do? You're saying it was irresponsible to do that without really talking to them.
well, I mean, we're in a position to advise at that point, I guess. We didn't, and it hadn't occurred yet that they would move forward and vote favorably to provide this letter. But I think the nuance is that a letter of indemnification is not necessarily a permit. To me, those are two separate issues, and I think that's two separate issues to a lot of people.
Two separate issues, but from my understanding, the town attorney said that once they sign, if they agreed to sign this letter, that they would be able to apply for the permits.
Well, they can apply for them. They are applied for. They've actually been approved for the permit, but they have not been issued a permit.
Oh, I see.
So my point is the act of issuing a permit is not necessarily, the assumption maybe is that those are hand in hand. But I think if there is if they are separate items, it's our responsibility to advise them that the potential damage if they had to rip it out. Again, there's nothing that says that. Why would you issue a permit knowing that potentially if you don't have successful, if the appeal is successful, that you have to rip that back out and the damage it's caused, which is unnecessary.
What's the potential benefit for the community with this, and the city? Like, I mean, why are they putting it in? What is their reasoning for putting it in?
It's actually, I mean, this has been talked about. I mean,
Yeah, you're asking questions. I mean, I've been talking about this.
And the point is, there isn't actually
There's no public benefit.
as a resident, I came in and I actually spoke to council, and I said it actually is entirely the reverse. What you're doing is you're taking away a community benefit.
We're hanging on to the scraps of what nature we have left here on the island, and it seems like some things are just going out of their way to destroy it. And I'm trying to understand for what reason. Like, even if you say the reason's money, like, I can relate, but but you know what I mean? Like, I don't see a reason for some of these decisions.
So maybe I'll make a motion. I make a motion that during the advisory update report at next Tuesday's meeting,
What time is
that we advise the town council that it is irresponsible and unnecessary to issue a permit prior to the exhausting the appeal process, because it would do undue harm to build and then remove a boardwalk through the environmentally critical zone. And that's our advice.
Well, I'm just trying to think, what's the precedent? I mean, with Margaretville, they didn't start until all the appeals were exhausted.
Correct.
Well,
Did
because
they get a permit, but they just didn't start building, or the permit was never issued?
much harder to tear down a building than it would.
Well, but we have that.
I'm not sure exactly how it worked,
He's
but I
a
think
point of
the,
process procedure, yeah, what's that, do you know, Phil, what that?
I think that, yeah,
Procedurally?
well, what the attorney said is that you shouldn't give a permit until the decision is unappealable, which means they've gone through all the appeals and they don't have any more appeals, which can take, years. That was the attorney's advice. This was a way to get around that by protecting the town if they issued the permit prematurely. That, my understanding, is coming back for reconsideration on Tuesday.
And would that come back, so if they sign that letter, why would it come back to town council? Why would the permitting
I
issue
think
come back?
it is.
The issue's coming back.
Because we were being sued by Audubon.
The ability to allow them to start building on November 1st. That's, if they have that permit in hand, they can start building November 1st, regardless of whether or not the appeal process has come to a conclusion. So that's the point, that it could be built in 30 days, I think is what the time frame is that was provided by the applicant. And who knows, maybe it'll still be under appeal in December. And then in January, if they lose, then they have to go out and they have to remove the entire thing.
So if
So
it's
that,
I'm still confused, if they've already been granted that permit.
they've been,
then-
no, they haven't been granted, they've been approved, but they have not
been
issued the permit.
Okay, so, but does the issuing have to go through town council? Or is that town staff?
No, it is going to, he just
Well,
said
it
it's
does
coming back.
because of this appeal.
Okay.
And then we need another step in order to do this.
Okay.
And that was approved 3-2 the last meeting, and now it's coming back. And the only people who can bring something back are people who voted for it.
Correct.
So
Majority.
like with all this stuff, I can't bring it back for reconsideration because I voted against it.
So why would they bring it back if they were?
Because a member
in
for
the
the
majority?
majority, a voting member of the majority is bringing it back. But to your point, Doc, about Margaritaville, because that was used as an analogy, the difference to me is that Margaritaville owns that property. If they choose to build it and it's appealed and they lose, then they destroy it. Well, it's still just a big piece of sand. It's their property. This is actually built into state lands. This is not private property this is being built on.
So what I would consider, you're making a motion to recommend to town that they don't issue the letter and they let the appeal process play out. I think it's also maybe worth having a second. It's already been done by Merck before in the past. Then a second motion just saying that you don't approve of the boardwalk, and I don't want to call it Dune Walk because it isn't the boardwalk.
Right.
What do you mean by the letter? Because my understanding is that, how do we know that the town attorney hasn't issued that letter?
I think he was contacted by the member of council that wanted to reconsideration, and I don't believe he's issued it.
Pardon my ignorance with this.
And they're still negotiating because they sent they have to send a letter and kind of make sure both sides agree before it's actually sent to be executed.
Okay.
So they need the permit to do the project. Do they also need permits because of the close vicinity of wildlife and then also the mangrove destruction?
They have that.
Or is it all?
They had to go to the DEP to get a lot of that, and they did that years ago.
Okay, so they've had that, and those don't expire.
They do, but they can be renewed
Okay.
trivially.
Yeah.
So let's redo the motion.
They could be renewed, but, so if it was why did FDEP,
In my opinion, that was just an administrative check mark.
okay, so if needs to be renewed, maybe we can request that FDEP, take a look at that.
Well, I think FDEP's also looking at whether or not it's in their best interest to allow a boardwalk to be built during an appeal process. That may be ripped right back out, so there could be potentially another person with standing, organization with standing on this.
And what had it been signed off on now post-Ian? I mean, everything was done pre-Ian, and the destruction has occurred to that area, to the whole island
It's a new
since
island.
then. It's not the same.
Yeah, I don't think they'll revoke the permit because of
But you know, that area with all the vegetation they have,
They did the
she
best.
did pretty well. I mean, there's a lot of garbage in the lagoons, I don't know
But
if
the
they were
lagoon
looking
is
at that
actually
either.
connected again.
But that's
It's flushed out.
That's that
It's actually-
Sanibel kind of meant
Right.
like thing I was trying to get. The more plants, the better you do.
Right, how much you've been down there, right? How, is it still open?
It still is, and it's changing. It's in flux. With our next high tide, who knows what's going to happen?
It's really fascinating.
It's very interesting to see how that area is changing.
Another reason not to
Little
build
inlet in there.
structures in that constantly
Right.
changing environment.
Steve, I don't mean to step on your toes.
no,
I don't
go
think we've had a second on your, so what I've been playing with here is some verbiage. I think we have possibly the need for two motions. The first one being that the Marine Resources Task Force has voted unanimously against any beach boardwalk construction on Fort Myers Beach. The second one being in consideration of the environmental damage that would be caused by the construction and possible removal, the Marine Resources Task Force has advised that no permits be issued until all possible appeals have been exhausted.
Excellent.
Now, I think that we need to be very careful with this wording, so let's think about it
I think
and then
those are-
decide if we want to.
Beautiful motions right
Yeah.
there.
Well, the first one, you said no beach walkovers. I think beach walkover to a critical wildlife area is different than, we want walkovers for the berms that they made.
Okay?
So we're not recommending no beach walkovers, we're just saying beach walkover to a critical wildlife zone.
Well, and this is a boardwalk. It's not really a walkover. It's a boardwalk.
But I mean,
Well, whatever you call it, I kind of agree. I was thinking the same thing about mentioning the
Okay,
EC
so
zone.
how are
Yeah,
we gonna
the
fix
EC
that
zone.
then? We're just gonna say the Marine Resources Task Force has voted unanimously against against,
EC zone.
I would say any
walkovers.
private construction in the EC zone. I wouldn't even mention what it is.
Yeah.
against any,
Construction.
should we say private or just say any construction? Because township's not gonna do it.
But we're talking about ones that are under appeal too.
But like, you know, if you're putting Moby mats down in the EC zone, is that considered,
Do they do that?
yeah?
Well, the EC zone, don't forget, runs the full length of the island.
Well, I mean,
Because a
I'm,
lot of the dune walkovers that they were actually dune walkovers that the town puts in
Yeah.
are in the EC zone.
but isn't that a critical wildlife area?
Well, this doesn't touch the
And not
critical wildlife area.
EC zone?
Well, it's both. EC zone is the overlay, right? That's a zoning thing. The critical wildlife area is another thing, but this is actually this far from the critical wildlife area. So they built it to not go in the critical wildlife.
That's why they joined their property lines, which I don't know about setbacks. I mean, I don't know how that flew either, but I mean, who else gets to join property lines to do any kind of development? I mean, it's just craziness, in my opinion. So you're on the right track here.
so the MERTF has voted unanimously against any private construction on Fort Myers Beach.
In the EC zone.
In the EC zone?
In the EC zone.
In the EC zone.
With the rest of your,
Okay, so that's one.
without being
That's the
appealed.
first one. So the first thing we do is we take our, have unanimously said we do not want this construction
Correct,
or
right.
any other such construction. That's decided.
In the EC
So the
zone.
next thing is, in consideration of the environmental damages that would be caused by the construction and possible removal of, and I didn't put what in here, the Marine Resources Task Force had advised that no permit be issued until all possible appeals have been exhausted. So we need to put in here for this construction. In consideration of the environmental damages that would be caused by,
What's the name of the specific project?
right, any private construction. Since that's what we're calling it, right? That would be caused by any private construction and possible removal
And subsequent removal.
on Fort Myers Beach. The Marine Resources Task Force advises that no permit be issued until all possible appeals have been exhausted.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Andy?
The question I have, procedural,
Discussion?
nothing about the, I agree.
Okay.
When will they're bringing up the letter again? You said somebody. What if they vote not to sign the letter? Then we don't have to present.
Well, I
Oh, we can
think,
still advise
no, but I think that most of the business comes after.
after, yeah.
So you have like, Pledge of Allegiance, public comment, and then the advisory committee reports are before the regular.
Okay. Yeah, I just didn't want to
So you'll get a,
present something that's already been.
Okay, that's fair. All right.
well, and they're, well, anyway. So yeah, you'll be able to say your piece before it comes up.
Okay.
Which is key. So, any other discussion on that motion? Any?
Is there any, so it says any on that second one. Do we want to be, do we want, the first one's abroad, the second one's more specific as to the one down there south, correct?
Right, because it's under appeal.
I'm trying to think future-wise, is anybody worried about anything in the future that might be beneficial to the environment that we would want to build on? Like, is there anything that would be beneficial, or? I'm not saying there is, there's nothing in my mind, I'm just
Yeah,
trying
I
to
just want to
think.
make sure we don't miss anything.
Well,
Yeah, no, I
like
think
the
this
garbage
is-
cans.
Well, any construction,
Construction.
like any construction could be construed as anything if somebody wanted to use that against, like, no new signs.
Well, I think if it's under,
Right.
I think the objective of that motion though is if it's under appeal, that you don't
Right.
move forward with it, just to have to reverse your
Okay.
position.
Oh,
And I think that's the
Yeah,
essence
that's
of that
my point.
second
I'm also
motion.
concerned about boardwalk, beach walkover. We want to get into semantics.
Yeah,
This one isn't, but it's not really that, it's this.
yep,
Just whatever it is. Let's make sure it's okay before we start.
yeah. Okay, that was my only,
Anything else?
what if?
And I think if you keep the language as private, then it means that, interpretive signs and all that kind of stuff is public, so.
Cool, okay.
Good.
So, any objections to the motion? Okay, motion carries unanimously 7-0.
What time and where is the meeting on Tuesday?
Diamond Head?
Time ahead at
9?
9 a.m. Mhm. Okay. 38, moving along here. Good, so how about members' items and reports? Oh, is there anything else? Okay, members' items and reports. Let's start with John.
The only thing, I won't be here for the July meeting,
You won't be here for the July meeting, okay.
Norway.
Really?
Huh?
I'll be in Norway in July.
July 1st to the 15th.
We're gonna be there like the 18th. Let's swap
Yeah.
notes.
Good. All right, Wendy, anything?
Nothing to report.
I will also not be here in July, I'm sorry, I keep,
Okay.
I'll be
That's
in
okay.
Scotland.
Oh, for a week off in Godas.
Right.
And you guys decide whether you want to, well, if you don't have enough people, then you can't meet in July, but,
Or if we could do,
town council needs to meet in
we could do
July.
like July 1st, that'd be great.
Well, let's see here. I'm still okay.
Can't do it without
So
us.
far, so good. Yeah, that's true, but
And then the other two things, I would like to continue, we talked about it before the storm, but continue discussion on possible propeller guards for rental boats. I'd love to start talking about that again. I still don't feel like we went all the way through it, but you know, I know there's bigger fish to fry. I get
Okay.
that. And if it's not something we want to, then then never mind on that. The other thing that I've been playing with a lot, and I don't know if it's that big of an issue on Fort Myers Beach. I know Little San Carlos Island has issues with it, and around the area where a lot of bigger individuals, construction groups, and things like that are coming through and they're destroying mangroves and areas without permits, and then they just pay the fine. And they get the fine. And I've looked into it, and it's on their dockets as like rent a bulldozer, personnel, mangrove fine. And I know this might put a target on my back, but what if we start trying to brainstorm some new penalties for that don't go after the individual paying the companies to do it, but actually go after the companies that are doing it? Because I'm sorry, but it's like these people have enough money to pay those fines, so they're not going to hurt it. We can't go crazy and say, oh, jail time or stuff like that. We can't raise the fine really. But if we said the company that is doing it willingly without that permit in hand gets a penalty or some type of, loses their business license, things like that. I really think that that's the way to go in the future. And I know that's a big hot topic issue that could potentially come, but these guys are just blatantly breaking the law, and they're paying the fine. And I know that fine money goes to good places, but at what cost? And and the only way to stop this is if we go after the companies that they're paying to do it.
Well, that's that is on the agenda, is mangrove protections, but so.
Is that a question for the town attorney?
Well, I mean, that's a huge legal ball of wax, but I think from our perspective is how do we save our mangroves? Because you're right, I mean,
Yeah.
the case in point is the beach theater.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, they just destroyed that area to the detriment really of the neighbors as well, because now they have lights and noise and everything coming from Estero Boulevard. You know, the owners got fined $5,000. The contractor got fined $5,000, but now they're gone.
For 10 grand is nothing, it's a drop.
But,
Right.
but that's what I'm saying. The companies that are doing this, if we threaten their livelihood in a way, well, first off, they shouldn't be breaking the law anyway. The argument I get back, you're going after the little guy breaking the law. Well, they're still breaking the law, and they can find honest work then for people that are willing to go about it. If they get the permits and that, then okay, then it's not a problem. And I don't know.
My hunch is well beyond the authority of the town.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, yeah.
It's above everybody's pay grade.
Yeah.
Oh, I know, but I'm just, this is the start of it. I plan on honestly kind of getting a little bit bigger with this
To your
idea.
point though, that's okay, because we understand those are the hurdles we have to get over, the obstructions. So how do we navigate that and keep our mangroves? Because again, paying to the Pine Island Mangrove Bank does us no good. They've got enough mangroves over there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
does anybody have enough? I'm not sure, but again, we're not in a position to just
Yeah.
to give them all away. Just
Are they supposed to file for permits to take out mangroves?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You have to have a permit to
Okay,
trim them.
this is the problem with this idea, is that I doubt they filed for a permit.
Oh,
They probably hired a company who you would probably never know who did it.
So they did it at nighttime,
You never know.
No, they
So
did it.
that's the
They
problem.
know who did it because they
Like
got
the
fined.
people, the companies that are gonna come forth and get a permit are gonna do what they need to do. It's the companies that come in and.
Well, and that's where, I mean, same thing with every other environmental issue, enforcement comes up. But it's also just if you see it, mangroves that were trimmed, as the enforcers, you go to that property owner and be like, do you have permits? Because there's properties all over the back bays and stuff that they trim right to the water. And that's not, it has to be 3 feet above or,
Did we
maybe
ever
4
find
feet.
out what happened to the property owners of the theater? in
Yeah, they
regards
got
to-
fined.
Yeah, they got
That's
fined.
all.
They got fined, that's
Yeah,
it.
$5,000.
Fine.
Now, what about, now I'm
Now they're gonna
thinking,
put it in a permit to put a seawall there and probably try to put docks there.
but when they are fined, isn't there something we can do by saying you have to replace? You have now a take, and now you have to replace.
Yeah, I have.
There's Chad waving.
Chad, yeah, can you?
I was waiting for that.
I was
waiting.
Instead of,
So where's that at, Chad? How does that work?
So mangrove trimming and alterations regulated by the 1996 Mangrove Trimming and Preservation Act. We also have a provision in our code that if you read the intent, it seeks to make it better, make it more strong, if you will. It was a weekend hit job. Anything that's happening on the weekend that's like that, it just seems like people knew what they were doing and trying to,
Go into rhythm.
Circumvent.
There's a lot of that going on after the storm.
right.
Most of these environmental funds are just
Having
legal
said all
with
that, the property owners have been very responsive, very compliant. I did receive update in their proposed restoration plan that I've asked them to come up with. I'm asking for kind of a comprehensive plan that includes the seawall and the dock with the mangrove restoration into the design of the structures. And they're making good progress on that point. One thing I would like to see is more mature mangroves planted. So we'll see what I can do within limitations of the code. FDEP is going to send a compliance assistance offer letter, which is mostly just an educational letter of don't do it again. So there's not a lot of enforcement coming from the state side. Whenever you are in the 1996 Mangrove Act, you have a provision if you're doing a permitted structure, then mangroves within the project area, that permitted structure can be altered, altered as a definition of alteration is anything beyond trimming. So if you're taking off 25% of the foliage, it's alteration. If you're cutting off the trunk, it's alteration. If you're excavating the entire mangrove, it's alteration. So they are allowed to alter that, alter those mangroves whenever they put in a seawall, but they hadn't applied for any kind of seawall permit or whatever. So the cart is definitely front force. So that is the update. Long story short is they are coming back with the restoration plan and have been responsive on that.
What's going in their check? Bar, restaurant? We don't know.
What if the
It
ordinance?
sounds like you should be
seawall.
boycotted, whoever they are.
A seawall.
Absolutely, right from the get-go.
I will-
If they give away beer, we'll spill it on the
I
ground.
will patronize them, yeah.
One way to possibly stop that is have a moratorium on any
Okay.
permits in that area for 5 years.
I don't know if you can do that.
No, I know, actually, there's a recent bill passed this last session against any kind of moratorium. So I was toying with the idea of having a moratorium against any developer-initiated changes to the comprehensive plan. But I was told by the attorney that you can't do that now with this new law.
But if they get a fine, isn't that a different category? If they've been fined for doing something illegal or whatever, if you violate,
DVPR is not going to go after their contract license. They're going to leave that to FDEP.
no, but you said there's a township ordinance. Can't you put
There's
it,
a what?
is there a township ordinance regarding mangroves?
Yeah, but I don't think we
Depends
can
on the
use,
state.
we can't do anything about the licensing.
No, just no permits. Don't let them get a permit. Don't take their license away. That property can't get a permit for that area where illegal mangroves were altered.
Yeah, if they do it illegally, then it cuts them off in the future.
Yeah.
Well, then how do we get it restored?
Well, there's,
Besides the
if
mitigation.
you do something like that, they're gonna say, well, maybe I'll get the permit next time. Instead of, they want to get their structure done. And if you say, well, you do it illegally, you now suffer the consequence of no permit.
No comment. I agree.
Well, I mean,
Sounds good.
in some ways, that's the way things work. They'll get a fine. The fine will, of course, go in front of the magistrate, and that will be there on, it can be put as a lien on the property. And the town can foreclose on that if it's not paid and isn't in compliance. And if they do something that is a permanent, if you go and you build something where you're not supposed to build something, then for as long as that's there, doesn't matter what it is, you're going to be accruing a fine. And that's like, there's one person in town that's got $2.7 million in fines accrued from just letting things continue for years.
Why would we issue permits if they're breaking the law to begin with, just at the very get-go? I mean,
Money.
the permits shouldn't be issued if you're already showing that you're incapable
I mean,
of
you break an
following the
environmental law in
laws.
Florida, it's legal with a price. It's a fine, and that's all it is to people. And the ones breaking these laws have the money that it doesn't affect them. And that's why I'm trying to think of ideas as to going after the ones who are actually physically doing it instead of the ones that are paying these people to do it. So,
Okay.
They'll just pass that on to
And-
the owner. I mean, it's,
So for the sake
but
of
if no one's
time,
willing to work with them, is what I'm saying.
that is on our list.
Yeah.
Agenda items, so we'll save the rest of the discussions for what's actually on the agenda.
Sorry.
Oh, no problem at all. That's just I wanted to let you know it was on the agenda. So anything else on your members' reports?
No, thank you.
Mary Rose.
Yeah, I can give you a turtle report unless you want to, Jen. I can just quickly say there's
You go
38
ahead.
nests. As of today, I saw number 38 being marked off, which is good. We need to recognize that since sea turtles nest every other year, we are not comparing it to last year's numbers. We're comparing it to 2 years ago. We are slightly behind, but in consideration of how different our beach is from what it was 2 years ago, probably better than we anticipated. The good news from my point of view is that the temporary berm has been accepted by at least some of these female turtles coming in. There are nests right on top of them. We've had to move a number of them because the dune construction is still ongoing. And so we have a nursery that's just south of the Wyndham, and things progress. There are, I think, about 90 almost false crawls, which is very high. And I think a major reason for that is we do have a lot of lights that are still visible because we've lost all of our vegetation and our housing. So that even in spite of the fact that so many places are vacant and we have vast expanses that are dark, there are still visible lights that many of these females can see as they're coming up.
We're also seeing a lot of vehicle tracks in the morning. Have you been noticing that?
There are. I think that we've been doing quite well, though, as far as being compliant. You know, the construction workers, I think, are doing their best.
We've seen golf carts
Yeah, out in the,
Oh, really?
on the beach.
before turtle time's
At
out there,
night.
you can see the tracks of them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's dangerous for them.
Yeah.
And that's my contribution.
There's no signage, so they don't know they can't go on the beach.
Ignorance is no defense. All right, thank you, Mary Rose.
You are welcome.
Rose Larkin?
I just kind of wanted to go back and try to get the vegetation ordinances wrapped up sometime.
Yeah.
Those big doe eyes, please.
Yeah, just,
I think it's
You sent us a lot of paperwork,
Yeah.
Rose, but it's very interesting
Yeah.
and informative. And yeah, we should push to get
I would
that.
encourage that too. Now's the time,
Yeah.
really, now's a good window to get some legislation in
Exactly.
place.
Yep.
Miss Mary Rose, just one comment on the lights. I can't help myself, but
Good.
you know, I was out last night, and I've been out since April, and I've never been able to do the whole beach in a night, which is telling because the more lights that are on, the longer it takes. Number two, you know, there was a Fox reporter on the beach a week or two ago in the early morning, and his report into the camera was literally, we don't have electricity, and it's 8 months later after Ian. He thought all the electricity was off. And I thought that was very telling. The false crawls are a phenomenon Florida-wide, or at least, maybe not Florida-wide, but at least perhaps driven by lower beach elevations that Hurricane Ian left both on the east and the west coast. So those numbers and those false crawls are being seen in multiple places, not just Fort Myers Beach.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay.
Oh, I have a couple of things. One is, I saw an article, or I believe it was on TV, where somebody was swimming and cut themselves very badly.
On our beach, yeah.
Yep. And I'm not sure if we're sending out alerts just to remind people of that we still have safety issues in our water, in our beaches. Still have lots of glass. Lots of pieces of wood. This past, I think, high tide that we had pushed up a lot of things, even either a phone pole or. So I saw a lot of debris washed up, and so I was just curious if Jenny or someone puts out alerts for safety, just to remind people to be safe when they're on the beach. And the second thing was, you can hear the kids in the beach camp behind us. And I would like to do, Jeff and I had discussed having a pop-up on the beach to have the kids come and have some fun. So we need to come up with some pop-up dates. And let's see.
One thing related to your pop-up is, I floated the idea of doing the farmer's market on Times Square.
I heard that. I saw that and I thought that was
So that may be a
great.
good pop-up
Yeah,
opportunity there.
which I think it's interesting because she was going to charge us to be at those, but I wouldn't have to. We wouldn't be charged.
We could certainly work that out, but
Okay.
if we're giving her the land, then give us a
Okay.
pop-up.
Okay, wonderful. Good idea. I was thinking the same thing.
Leverage there.
So I'd like to come up with some dates if I can just get approval.
So it would have to be during the week, right? The
It would-
camp is Monday to
Mondays,
Friday?
Wednesdays or Fridays are just waiting on me to let them know. so
Wednesday,
they-
Monday, Wednesday, Friday?
And it would be, the pop-up would be at Connecticut, so they could just walk down the street with the kids. Monday, Wednesdays, or Fridays, and we could have 2 in their season, which I believe, oh, I wish he was here, I can't remember how late in the season, I think it ends in August. So basically, we would want maybe 2 in July. And either Mondays, let me look at my calendar. We can even do one in June and maybe one in July, so it spreads out a little bit. Let's see, how about Wednesday, the 21st or the 28th of June? And July, Wednesday, the 12th or 19th. That gives it basically.
So what's gonna happen, Jen? The kids are just gonna walk down to the beach and they're gonna spend some time
Some
there?
time, yeah, yeah.
And then we're
And
gonna
there's
be there
35
to
kids,
talk
so
to
I
them.
will definitely need some help. There'll be 35 kids, 35
Okay.
or 40 kids
Is,
there.
are they bringing a lunch or they're, no, they're
That's up
just?
to them. That's up to to Jeff. That we're just gonna come and set up and have the
And
kids
we'll
come
be there to
through.
talk
Maybe they'll
beachy.
do groups, so we're not just all at once do 35. I'll talk to them about that. But
I can commit to Wednesday the 28th.
I'm sorry.
I can commit to Wednesday the 28th.
Perfect. Okay, so then let's do the pop-up Wednesday, June 28th, and a pop-up Wednesday, the 29th, or sorry, the 19th or the 26th.
What time?
It would be morning. Oh, what time do they start? I'd have to find out the time, but it would be just probably for a few hours.
Well, I'll commit to the 28th for now.
Yeah,
I
for
can't
the
do July
morning. It
8th.
would be morning time.
After total time.
Okay, yeah.
And when in July, Jen?
July, I'm thinking either the 19th or the 26th.
Okay, either one. I'll be there either, just let me know.
Okay. Well, I guess we have to decide now.
Okay,
Okay, so let's do the 19th.
okay.
So the 28th and the 19th.
And really, everyone should come. We'll have fun.
Yeah, it would be
Yep.
a lot of fun for the kids. I've got to, for maybe you that weren't, just to give you all heads up, we received $5,000 from the Community Foundation. Jeff had also received some money for the Mound House through the CF, Fort Myers Beach Community Foundation. And he had announced that they were going to be doing the camp because it was in question because of Bay Oaks. They are doing the camp, as you can hear, and they had a great turnout of registries. And I had thought and met with Jeff on doing an activity book for the pop-up and getting the beach kids to do some illustrations. So basically the pop-up, we're gonna teach them on, some wildlife and dunes and plants, native planting, and we have a friend that's coming out with her dog to talk about the being a beach friend forever, good practices when you have a dog on the beach.
I'll
So-
bring a dolphin and a manatee skull
Perfect,
and
perfect.
some microscopes.
Yeah, yeah,
like that now.
perfect. So that's good. So
Awesome.
there was one more, but okay, I'm gonna hold off.
Can we go back to Rose Council to say okay?
The language has to be written.
Oh, the language isn't written.
Because remember, we went through all those, we made recommendations, we did everything on our part to codify to codify the ordinance and, or to present to council. It just hasn't been presented. So we're waiting language, right?
Which ordinance is this again?
I think the vegetation.
Turn the tree.
I think all three, vegetation, tree, and, well, that water one, but that's just a,
Well, so there's
that's a
just
model
two,
ordinance.
vegetation and tree.
There was the one which was just that everyone else in the Lee County had passed copying what everybody else had.
Yeah, we didn't have any really input, we just said, yeah, we ought
Because
to.
Chad sent
adopt.
us stuff and it looked to me like it was already done, like there were cross
Cross
outs
outs
for,
and all
yeah,
that?
and stuff.
Is that?
So I don't know that anything has to be done.
I'm sorry, I
That's-
wasn't able to see because it came,
Oh,
I didn't get to
It
see
has
it.
its
Yeah, I
own
just
town
looked at it.
council and
oh, it hasn't been the town, oh, okay.
Oh, and sorry, one more question. What did the council decide to give, or did the lady who does the what's the word I'm thinking?
PIO?
No,
Lady.
the lady who does. You were just
How many syllables?
Sounds like.
sounds like plants, food, vegetables. What?
Food lady, the
The
farmer's market
Farmer's
lady.
market
Farmer's market,
lady,
okay.
thank you.
Yeah,
So
I'm
was
good at
that, was that already granted, or did she
Plus
accept
one.
the, I know that she was thinking about it?
She was going to check with Public Works and look at the layout and see if it was suitable, if it was in the space there.
Okay, one more members report, that's me. So I wanted to share with you an email I received from Rebecca Schneider. She's with the FWC. She came and presented. She's, let me read her title here. It's the Southwest Regional Species Conservation Biologist, FWC. So she sent me an email. Actually, it's titled Shorebird Advocacy from Fort Myers Beach Marine and Environmental Resource Task Force. So she basically says, hello, I hope you're doing well. I'm reaching out to request some support from METRF representatives from perilled beach nesting bird stewardship, education, and advocacy. Due to direct and secondary effects from Hurricane Ian, FWC is working to manage several new nesting sites on Fort Myers Beach this season. While this is extremely exciting for our imperiled species, we've experienced a lack of understanding and unreasonable resistance from the community. Given unprecedented workload, several staff vacancies, and absence of volunteers, we have minimal capacity to address these stakeholder issues as they arise. I'm hoping you'll consider bringing this concern up at your next METRF meeting and determine how METRF can partner with us in favor of protecting our natural resources. Please feel free to call or discuss further. So I did give her a phone call. And one of the first questions I asked was whether that agreement that we sort of commented on with in terms of the portion about pesticides is still active between, I guess Island's End is still there, Castle Beach, is that what it's called? And the third one is Sandrak? No, is,
No.
there's 3 property owners down there along with some homeowners. She said, no, that's still valid and that's still ongoing. But they've been getting harassed. I mean, the signs are being ripped down, people are screaming at them. And so they're reaching out to us because they know what our scope is and what we do for the beach. And so I just wanted to bring that up. I don't know if that's something we can put on the agenda of how we can help them for our next meeting. But basically, I think what's happening is, you know, that whole southern, I mean, I don't want to just lump everybody together, but that southern end of the island is starting to poison itself against, I
Everything
mean,
environmental.
everything conservation oriented. And, you know, I think that's a big problem.
Is it the residents or the landowners?
It's, we're not even sure who they are, I guess. She wasn't, you know, a lot of them are landowners, and they're coming out and stating they have rights and things like that, which she dutifully explains to them, the steward there, that they have the right to rope, you know, that their mandate is to protect threatened species and that they actually have the right to do that. And I think the discussions typically go okay to some degree, but you know, last year there's a little bit of this going on too, and I have to be honest, I think it's a result of these activities that are happening down there. Because I know at one point there was a suggestion that there was going to be somewhat of a consortium down there to prevent FWC and Audubon from helping these threatened and endangered species as a, you know, to be obstructive to them because of the activities that are going down there. So I don't know if there's a way we can help this poison from spreading on the south end of the island. That's, I mean, again, what do you, these birds aren't taking your land. I mean, they're borrowing it, they're procreating, and they're moving on. They're not staking a deed or attempting to plat their property forever. I mean, I think the
Well,
basis of it is unconscionable. So, I mean, that's, based on the conversation with her, that's a lot of what I've taken out of it. So I think, our mandate is to find out maybe how we can help them.
Well, I think education is
Sure,
number
I
one,
mean,
because these people are buying property that, and they live in Midwest or they live in New York and they buy this property not thinking anything about the environment. I have an actual neighbor who, came down from New York and she's got uplights and she's got a, cement driveway and she's got bird detours, alarms. So people come here and they are not thinking, they're thinking beach and bars and they're buying property to make money off of the rentals. They're not really coming here understanding that the reason why they purchase is the environment and the beauty, but we have to take responsibility and take care of it.
But a lot of this is because of the narrative. I mean,
Yeah.
because I think
I think-
most homeowners would be overwhelmed at the opportunity to have this very precious, unique opportunity to have threatened birds on your property.
I
mean,
think
it
the
seems like
key
it's
is that
crazy.
our arguments have been data-driven, and in fact, they need to be heart and
I was
mind-driven.
just gonna say something.
We need to stop arguing that the numbers of shorebirds are gone. We need to get people to appreciate an individual shorebird, and
Mhm.
this is what we want to keep. And
Let them
we
actually-
are in a battle for hearts and minds, and we're not going to win them over, obviously, with the way we have been arguing. It's
Money drives the landowners, but the people that are living in these condos, the ones that do care about the environment or don't, we should see if FWC would be open to inviting them out to monitor.
Exactly,
nest.
to actually see what's
And
going
see
on
these
there. I
babies.
agree, 100%.
And that's
Yeah.
exactly
That's
what I was
what
going
we
to
need. We
say.
need
That heartstring needs
a
to be.
campaign for hearts and minds.
Okay, so we'll leave it at that, we'll put it on the agenda.
Hearts and minds.
And then we can brainstorm on maybe how we can aid them in their,
Steve,
Their
just real
quest.
quick, it's my understanding that the property owners down there have created a 501c3 to support FWC.
they have.
Yeah. Just FYI.
That sounds positive.
Well, that's not,
I don't know if that's positive or manipulative.
yeah, well, I don't know who, I mean, we'll look into it, Chad, obviously who's behind that and what their objective is, although you said it's to help, but,
Yeah, because.
but I don't know why this was, came from the responsible FWC person. I think it's from the reports from the stewards and stuff, so.
And it's hard to gauge whether this is a small group of agitators or whether it's the majority, what the majority of people does, I think.
Well, I can tell you that there's a request to tell Audubon to pull back, or they're gonna do everything they can to make their lives difficult.
Wow. Wow.
I
So,
heard that too.
I did,
Yeah.
and Councilman King made some kind of comment how FWC is making it more difficult for the landowners down there, and I don't know what the.
it's just, can we actually maybe mediate it somehow, is the objective, I think, they're asking us to do, to help them understand what's actually happening down there, so. But that's interesting, Chad, we'll have to check in on that, but we'll have that added to the agenda on how we can help the FWC, so. With that being said, we're done with members' items and reports. Public comment? Seeing nobody here, we'll assume that's off. Murph Award?
I still need to get you to Lee County.
The lot next to me, where people walk around barefoot and it's full of glass and tile.
How about the community foundation? They've been given a lot of money.
Ooh. Do you have a motion? Community Foundation for their donation?
It just popped in my brain that they would be worthy.
I would put that on.
Murphy recipients,
Second that
the
as a
community
motion, as
foundation.
a person, as
A
one.
contender.
For their,
As a contender, exactly. We'll have to vote on the final,
As a
but,
backup.
what's that?
And use them as
I
the
didn't
next
get their
one.
names or
Oh,
pictures.
okay.
Sure, yeah.
Right.
Come on, is this your first rodeo?
Hey,
Like you invented it.
That's how I met you, was I was walking with loads of garbage down the beach and he was weird man coming up to me with a camera. I'm like, what is he doing?
yeah, so a couple of the young girls, can I take your picture?
Okay, there's one, and you said you
I
had a
have
couple?
two. One is a veterinarian that came down right after the storm, as soon as they were allowed to come down. It was a veterinarian practice who came down and rescued Boss and had to euthanize some animals that were, not in good condition after Ian, and he did that. They did it out of the kindness of their heart after Ian. The second was, and I hope I get this right, the name of it, again, we had Keep Lee County Beautiful and Mound House and Moss Marine did a cleanup with kayaks out in the bay. And I mean, the amount of garbage still and plastic and I mean, the kayaks were just filled. I mean, you couldn't even see people because it was just filled with garbage bags and debris and windows and beds. We pulled out a mattress and
If we ever want to put on something like that, I'd
I
have somebody with a
think-
fleet of kayaks.
I think the town should. This is along the lines of what Adderholt was saying about, get the town involved and do these cleanups because, Keep Lee County Beautiful said that they probably wouldn't be doing another one until September, but I think the town should start getting involved more and get kayaks out there
I'll
to
donate
clean.
my
There's
boat.
so much debris back there and plastic and trees and, my husband actually got out of his kayak and started going through the mangroves trying to get to stuff, and there's just so much back there. So I think more actively get out there in the morning to clean up.
So we have three.
Oh, so, no, I'm sorry. So the no. So the Lee County was already from last month. I just need to get you the pictures. So Keep Lee County Beautiful was awarded to Murphy from last month.
Last month, right.
But so there's the veterinarian, but there was a boat out there that was, I think it's Paradise Island Adventures or some. They do tours back and forth. They donated their time to sit in the middle of the bay to help the kayakers, and they would take the garbage off the kayaks and load it up. And you could see all these other tour boats going back and forth with hundreds of people on there. And I was thinking, these guys took their time. They could have, said, "Oh, to the almighty dollar, let's, take some tours out," but they didn't. They helped us, and I think they should be recognized because we need to recognize these boating companies when they do something right for the environment.
Good candidates this month, I must say. So, having said that, we've got three. We've got the Community Foundation, and they're a very generous donation. We've got the veterinarian. And did I understand it correctly? They were there to help euthanize?
Yeah, they would. The ones that weren't gonna make it, they euthanized them, and I don't know if anyone remembers, but right at the base of the bridge, SPCA had their trailer out there to help with the animals.
And you have photos?
I do. I have
all
a
that
photo
stuff?
of the veterinarian.
Okay.
Maybe I'll get one of some of the crew that actually came down. I don't think it was him because he had other things going on with his building, but with his practice. But I'll ask him if he's got pictures of maybe although I doubt they were taking pictures. It was so chaotic after Ian. I doubt they got any pictures, but you never know.
And the third is, you said it was
I believe it was
Paradise
Island
Island
Paradise
Tours.
Tours, but I'll call Trish with Keep Lee
The
County
yellow
Beautiful.
boat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that it? Okay.
Island Paradise Tours. All right, so there's three of them. So let's do them.
Any immediacy in them? Like, is it, we should recognize the ones that will disappear, like,
Right, the ones that is there one more timely than another.
yeah. What do you think, Jen?
Well, the Community Foundation, the new president actually had a stroke and is, I believe, in the hospital. So I would
We'll hold off on that then.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Who is that, Jen?
It was Paula Smith.
Okay.
I have, if anyone knows, or I have a card if anyone wants to sign or knows of her, just send well wishes.
Good. So between the two then, we'll put the community foundation in the bank.
Mhm.
And so the two are the vet and the Island Paradise Tours. So all in favor of the vet?
But
Bro,
I think you lose.
guess so.
Oh, well, unless somebody's not voting.
See, we don't
And all in
always
favor of
disagree.
Paradise
We don't
Island
always
Tours. All right, Paradise Island Tours, we'll get the
But
Murphy
we'll
for the
keep the
sheriff.
veterinarian in the bank.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah, that's a good
absolutely,
one.
it's
They
nice.
got 2 votes.
Yeah.
The chair likes to have a few in the bank, I'll tell you that. Okay, so Paradise Island Tours it is, get some Murphy. And,
So I'll owe you 2 articles.
one in
then.
July, right, exactly.
So when do you need the one from Keep Lake County Beautiful? The picture and the art and the.
Sooner the better, that's for June,
Okay, I'll
so,
send that to you this week.
yep, that'll be great.
I'll just send both of them so it's at the same time.
Okay.
And because
then-
it's just a paragraph or 2, right?
That's right, that's
Okay.
right, and then July is Wendy, I was thinking you had the article,
And
so.
then you have spoken with the Observer, they're back on board?
They're back on board, yeah, we've been submitting the 2 separate, I mean, because we had a Murphy that first month and didn't have an article, and then we had Rose's article, so I said, well, I might as well send that. I mean, I don't think it has to be in the same, I asked if they had a preference, I hadn't heard back, so I'll get them when we get them to them. So having said that, set the agenda for the next meeting.
Are we meeting in July?
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a quorum, we have 5 out of 7, so we'll move forward. So we have beachside, beach accesses once again.
I do have one more thing.
We have vegetation on town properties still, and then the third we'll put FWC on there. How we can help the FWC, and those 3 should be enough for the meeting.
I think too, at the presentation that you do for the, just, I would also ask council to put those items in the agenda that like the vegetation and tree permits or ordinance. Say that the work's already been done, they need staff time and now is the time to do it since.
so who's gonna forward to me the motions?
I will.
Okay.
I will. Yeah, and that's not just that's just, you could also, you could do the motions and you get into the color commentary, and that doesn't, that's on you, so I can give you some bullets if you want to make sure you know.
Okay.
And can I have a pop-up if for some reason the farmer's market lady does decide before our next meeting?
I'm sorry.
Can I have the pop-up if for some reason she decides to do the
On the,
market before our next meeting? Can I just, or
Add it to the agenda?
add it, no, not to the agenda.
do it?
Just do it?
Oh,
You need
absolutely,
approval
no.
to do pop-up?
The town attorney
Did they-
basically gave me all of
Yes.
us a lesson saying that
Okay.
everything needs to be discussed before.
Okay.
Every time you go out, we have to okay it?
We have to discuss it because it's a MRF, it's a town event.
Okay,
So I don't want to make a motion that I can have the pop-up if the
farmer's market's on.
farmer's market is setting up in Times
And
Square.
then just ask for assistance through chat.
And then I'll send Jenny the dates and the calendar and
Right.
I don't know if the calendar needs to be approved by MRF. And I don't know how that works, but,
I motion that you can make that calendar for the pop-ups.
okay,
I second it.
okay.
Any objections, discussion?
None.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, any objections? Carries unanimously.
We have a second.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second, okay. Right on. So who, on the minutes, do we have a motion to approve?
Oh, sorry.
So you're back for this. I was just like, oh.
And who seconded?